All right, let's get started then. Thanks everyone for joining. It's been pretty much a month since our last update. Today we're gonna go through, again, a reminder of our meeting feedback survey that we launched over the last few weeks. We're gonna have an update on our NPS survey that we are about to launch, a couple of updates on the ZEIP process that we are proposing, updates from protocols, your XAPI, Mesh, and also we're gonna have some time at the end where we're gonna have a spotlight from one of our ecosystem developers, micro sponsors. So let's get started. I believe this is you, Brent.
Yeah, great. So we've been asking for feedback, I believe on the previous two meetings, about how we can improve the value of this meeting for everyone. Your time is very valuable. We certainly appreciate everybody joining, taking time out of their busy day and joining this call month after month. And really, we wanted to get some feedback from you folks, the developer community of ZeroX, on how we can improve this value. So just going over briefly the previous survey results, most of you who responded felt that there was value in joining the meeting live, and most of you did do that versus watch a recording. Primary reason for participating, the biggest reason was to learn about future roadmap plans. That was by far the top reason. Secondary reasons to catch up on developer updates that you might have missed or ask questions directly to the team. As far as meeting cadence goes, everyone actually felt that the monthly meeting cadence was appropriate. And as far as just general feedback on how we can make this meeting more helpful, the pieces of feedback that we received was encourage the devs to ask more questions, and then also adjust the timing of the time of the meeting to allow teams in non-US time zones. And I believe this one in particular was the UK time zone. So with that, really wanted to take the time to open this up for discussion with all of you here. I'm hoping that people will be open in sharing that versus we don't want to have to start picking names. But based on this, seeing all of this, does this resonate with everyone? Is there additional feedback and thoughts on how we might improve this meeting? Start picking names.
Yeah, you guys have asked us to encourage to ask more questions.
Whitney, I'm going to pick on you because you joined first, and I know you personally. So any thoughts on your side? I know you've also been participating in other developer ecosystem developer meetings for other projects as well. So any thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely encourage developer feedback, and I think that's good there, especially towards the end. Almost making sure that that's separate for office hours at the end, anything that are unique to any individual project. I know that several members of our team listen in. Usually we just want to make sure that we're there in case there are any changes. We'll send feedback. Most of the time we're just observers though.
Okay, and just going off of the office hours, are you suggesting that it would be helpful to have open office hours after the call, or using this call as almost an open office hour itself?
Afterwards would be great. There have been other calls that I've been in, things get very specific to someone's application, at which point I will definitely drop off if it's really specific questions on that side. So making sure that is segmented for when people are in there. Feel free to cut people off if they have very specific questions and just push them to office hours later.
Awesome, thank you. That's good feedback. Brandon, Caleb, David, Lauren, anyone else?
I have a question for the crowd. How do people feel about the process for submitting agenda items for this meeting, or are people even aware of that process? And how do people feel about the content of these meetings generally?
I wasn't aware there was a process.
That's good feedback.
Was there ever a time where you wanted to discuss something that we ended up not covering in the meeting?
I'm cool just sort of shouting things out, so I've never had a problem bringing things up, but I wasn't aware that there was a beforehand process.
Okay.
I also didn't know that there was an official process, but I do know that I can ping. My main touch point is probably Brent at this point. I just ping him in the Discord, but I know that's not probably scalable.
Why don't I take a second to just in the chat comments share our meeting agenda page on GitHub. We keep this updated with the upcoming meetings as well as previous meeting agendas, slides, and recordings. So this should serve as sort of the portal for any developer meetings, both past and present, past and future, excuse me.
Yeah, so if you want to add something to the agenda, you can just go to the issue and comment on there.
And we typically try to keep put the slides up. We put the agenda up about a week or so in advance of the meeting. That may change to the point where we actually have the meeting. We might adjust a few things, but it should generally give you a sense of the broad topics that we'll cover. And at that point, we welcome any feedback. In fact, at any point, we welcome any feedback on topics that you folks would like to see covered. And if we have time, we can definitely incorporate those into agenda. Slides we try to get up 2 to 3 days. This particular meeting, unfortunately, we were not able to get them up, so you're going to be seeing them live. But for future meetings, we always strive to give you at least a draft of the slides 2 to 3 days in advance so that you can review and formulate any questions you might have. And recordings are typically posted in about 24 to 48 hours after each meeting, and that's also shared on the portal page and our YouTube channel. Any other feedback on Amir's question or just general feedback about how we can improve the value of this meeting for all of you?
How about the time zone? Sorry, yeah, the time, I guess. I mean, it's true that this is like convenient for PST, bearable, I guess, for East Coast. For Europe, this is late. So maybe we should think about making it earlier, I guess. Would anyone be opposed to that? To making it earlier, like 2 or 3 hours earlier? Doesn't matter.
To be honest, I like to have a meeting after the
working hours.
Yeah, because usually you have so many meetings related to the product, to your product, and having outside working hours could be the best. Anyway, I can understand completely people that maybe work in tightly with 0x. So, I mean, participating to this kind of meeting is part of their daily job. So I think that this is something that we can discuss meeting by meeting. I mean that if you say in advance when it will be, we can discuss using the issues and voting using emoji for maybe 2 or 3 time zones.
That's a good idea.
As far as the general structure of the meeting, is there any feedback there? Outside of future roadmap plans, are there any other things that would be interesting to either add to the agenda or modify within the agenda itself? Okay. Okay. Well, our Discord is always a place where you can provide us with more feedback. But thank you very much for feedback on this meeting.
Let's go to the next.
Yeah. And speaking of feedback, we are always, we always value what our developer and our general community think. We have started doing NPS surveys biannually, and we're about due for another one. So we have the survey is now live. You'll see the link down there. And we really hope that you'll take the opportunity to provide us with your feedback as our developer community. We'll also share this across our social channels and encourage the rest of our community to join. We'll keep this particular NPS survey open until the end of the month, so you'll have time. But we really, really appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us.
Yeah, this is just want to reiterate, this is very important. We run this every 6 months. It's really your opportunity to really openly share what you think we are doing. Especially we're interested in knowing your honest opinion on how we're doing, but also especially what there's still room for improvement. So we would really appreciate you taking some time to pass that signal to us. An example of what in the past we basically took action on is all the work that we've done on ZeroX API. We realized that there was need for a better way, an easier way to integrate with our pipeline of smart contracts, and we acted on it. It took a few months to work on it, but yeah, that's basically the result of good feedback that was received by the developer community. So to those in the call and to those that are going to watch the video, please, we really value this. We'll take time and inform our roadmaps based on this. So thanks in advance. All right, let's move on. A quick update on the ZEIP process. We shared it last time. Basically, we have a ZEIP that talks about ZEIPs. It's like a meta ZEIP type of proposal. Basically, we acknowledge that there's need for more oversight and more structure in the way that we get your ideas down to the ZeroX core team roadmap and down to the smart contracts. This is a proposal to structure it a little bit more. What is changing? Simply, again, more standardization across the board, types, tags. There's a new template. And most importantly, yes, we'll make sure to stick with those and clean the pipeline that you see right now that is like maybe not really high quality. And basically, we're interested in making sure that, yeah, that place is a good representation of what the community wants to change about ZeroX smart contracts and the pipeline in general. We're going to put this up for vote. We are actually updating a little bit our code infrastructure for the voting that needs to take into account staking voting power. So we are shooting for either Epoch 13 or Epoch 14 for the vote. So it should be happening within a few weeks. But we'll make sure to basically share it across the board in all the channels. So we hope you're gonna participate, provided that you are token holders. All right, that's it on my side. I think we have a few protocol updates. I guess Samir, you want to take that?
Yep. So this is a pretty early idea that we started working on, which I guess would be considered V4 of the protocol. But we're thinking about using a new architecture for the exchange contract that would largely focus on improving the upgradability patterns within the protocol. So this wouldn't necessarily introduce new features just yet, but what it would do is allow for completely backwards compatible migrations and faster iteration speed. So if a new version of the protocol comes out, all the developers building on the protocol don't necessarily need to do anything to upgrade. We've found that is still a decent pain point. It takes at least a few days to upgrade from V2 to V3, for example, and it also just allows us to let's say someone requested like one new function, or there was like one change required in a single function in the contract. We can have like a pretty isolated upgrade that wouldn't affect anyone else by using this new architecture. So starting to spec this out right now, and when we have an initial spec, that'll be proposed as ZEIP. This will probably use the delegate call proxy pattern that is similar to what the staking contract uses today. Any questions about this?
Yeah, I have a question about the exchange architecture. I are you willing to enforce the upgrade to the developers, or would you maintain maybe the linking? What I mean is that if I'm using the V3, for example, and tomorrow there will be the V4, it's something that I will be enforced to change or not? I mean, should be transparent on my side, or I have some sort of control?
Yeah, so there are a couple different angles to answer that question from. So first of all, we're, as one of the things that would be built into this, we're thinking about like what some sort of permission system might look like, and kind of how people might be able to opt in or out of upgrades. And then, second of all, Theo just released a blog post kind of outlining our desired governance process and roadmap going forward. And eventually these upgrades would be fully on chain and voted on by the community. Right now they are voted on, but ultimately enforced by us, and everything has between a 10 and 30-day time lock, depending on the specific function. And you can find that all online in our specifications repo. So people would at the very least have warning and the ability to opt out. There might be something more granular built into this new architecture, though.
My question essentially is, if I'm an integrator for your protocol, I would like maybe to have more time because I have other deadlines or something like that. So be able to opt into a specific upgrade that maybe it's a change in the protocol could be interesting. So I would like to see an architecture that reflects the opportunity to have, segregated upgrades. So maybe upgrades that I will be opted in automatically, but other that are maybe more disruptive for my pipelines. That's why I'm asking.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, we're definitely thinking about that. Like, one of the ideas being floated right now is essentially having a smart contract per function and having different versions of each function registered in the smart contract. So like you could, potentially use both simultaneously, but the ultimate idea is to have this as backwards compatible as possible, so as not to disrupt people.
Okay, thank you very much.
So one of the major not major pain points, but minor pain points that makes the integration for us like 1 or 2 days has been that the JavaScript API kind of churns a little bit. And it would be great if between those versions, if the JavaScript API did not change, if that could be locked down and we stopped moving things around.
Yeah, for sure. We're thinking about that as well. There are probably going to be some things where it's not possible to completely have our libraries backwards compatible, like if the order format changed, for example. But yeah, in general, we would like to kind of lock those down. But yeah, that's good feedback.
Yeah, I think the order format change was fine because it was well articulated. It's kind of when like things move around a little bit. Like I think there was like some re-architecting where like things move from one package to another package.
Yeah, there was definitely a healthy or a large amount of re-architecting of our packages between the V2 and V3 migration. Hopefully for the better. I think it's for the better, but yeah, definitely create a bit more work.
The way I read this from your questions, guys, I think it's and probably it's like high level, but maybe we need to do a better job at identifying when we have some upcoming breaking changes on your end, basically. This being an order format change or the introduction of a different way of interacting with the exchange contracts. and defining those boundaries and being upfront in when one of those is coming up, therefore requires an active change on your side. Is probably something that we need to be better at in the future, especially as we think about this new architecture. I'll move to the next slide if there are no other questions. All right.
All right. So quick update on some of these lending bridges that we're working on. So smart contracts for both the Chai bridge and DYDX bridges are live. And we also recently added specs to our specifications repo for each if you want to start integrating those. So quick reminder, the Chai bridge allows you to earn the DAI savings rate while providing DAI liquidity. So the market maker who creates the order will be holding Chai and earning the DAI savings rate. But when someone actually fills that order, they will just receive regular DAI. This you can begin integrating right now. It should be fairly straightforward using the standard Relayer API. The asset data is static. So if you wanted to display these Chai orders in conjunction with the DAI orders on your order book, you would probably just need to make 2 different SRA calls and merge those order books together. And yeah, I will say there's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem here where I think market makers are hesitant to start using this unless there are relayers who are supporting it, because it'll be more difficult for people to discover their orders. So yeah, I think it would definitely be good to integrate these at some point. We know there are definitely market makers who are interested in using this. The DYDX bridge is slightly more complicated to integrate, I would say. The asset data is dynamic depending on the collateralization ratios you're using and stuff like that. And that will soon be integrated into the swap quote endpoint on 0x API. A bit more difficult to integrate using the standard Relayer API. But yeah, that should be out pretty soon. And I believe Mesh already supports Chai Bridge and should be supporting DYDX Bridge fairly soon. Any questions on this?
More than questions, proposals to this. I will propose you to evaluate also to bridge some lending platforms because when you have open orders, could be a good idea to earn some, something. The only difficult challenge, or the challenge that I see now, is that you have to manage the risk correctly, or at the end, let the order fail in the case that you are not able to unlend from the platform when you have to execute the order. But I think that integrating tokens lending platforms like Aave would be quite easy, thanks to the fact that they have a token that is pegged one by one. But at the same time, since you have integrated Chai, would be quite easy to do the same job with Compound or other platforms. So this is one of the proposal that I want to put on the table. And the other one that I would like to discuss if we have time is to, I like a lot the concept of margin market making. So here I see the YDX bridge that basically can allow market makers to open orders with low liquidity. So basically, we are reducing the barrier for market makers to enter in this kind of jobs. Would be interesting to explore the idea of amplifying orders using maybe Flash or whatever. So basically opening a leverage orders that effectively is leveraged as soon as it is matched. So this is a proposal.
Yeah, so that's exactly what you can do with the DYDX bridge. We're definitely interested in adding more, and you can actually like create your own bridges to do the integration. It doesn't really it's completely permissionless to add. It really just needs to be integrated throughout all of the different tools. So like Mesh and potentially Xerox API. But I these are like kind of the two bridges right now that allow for most of the use cases. And I think before the core team goes and builds all the other bridges, we'd like to just see people using these and prove that there's kind of a use case for it. I think that the Chai bridge especially is like pretty unopinionated because if you trust DAI and you're already trading DAI, then you're not really adding any additional trust by using this contract. Whereas the other bridges kind of require you to pick your favorite protocol, I guess. But yeah, definitely interested in adding all of these.
Thanks for the feedback.
And yeah, I mean, if you are interested in creating one, that would probably be really helpful for us and expedite our timeline because I'm not familiar with the code base of how do you say it? Aave?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be super helpful. Or even if you wrote like a ZIP or a spec, if you just kind of take a look at these specs and if there's something comparable for us to look at, I think that would really speed things up on our end.
Great. I think that we can open a thread starting from this slide, maybe later, about discussing it and maybe go deep on the spec that there are there. Okay?
Cool. Thank you. Any other questions on the slide? All right, let's move on. All right, so before jumping into this, I want to give a quick recap of how smart order routing in Xerox API works today. So we have a separate bridge contract for every single protocol that is aggregated within Xerox API. And we do a bunch of, we calculate an optimal route purely off chain. And then we can create orders from this routing logic and just pass them directly into one of the fill functions on the exchange contract. So the benefit of doing all this is that most of the heavy lifting is done off chain and it really reduces gas costs. However, we've also found that this can sometimes increase the revert rates we're seeing. If you kind of give the same orders to multiple people and they're mined in a different order, there are potentially some race conditions and stuff like that. So we came up with this new concept that I think is a nice happy medium between the off-chain and the on-chain logic. So we could create a single aggregator bridge contract and create an order that maps specifically to this aggregator bridge. Once that aggregator is called, it would actually calculate quotes for all the different DEX protocols that it supports, and it would pick the best ones to fill at the time that function is called. So this allows us to still do some of the routing logic off chain, but also kind of get the benefits or most of the benefits of the fully on-chain logic as well. This should lead to more accurate and slightly better prices overall. It'll also reduce the amount of protocol fees paid because now you will have less orders being passed into a fill. So if this thing could potentially fill through like Uniswap and Curve and only pay one protocol fee instead of two. Should lead to fewer reverts because there are going to be fewer race conditions that are hit. And also, this could allow for purely on-chain DEX aggregation through 0x. So this bridge contract could expose a function that just spits out orders based on the quotes that it generates at the time. And anyone that is integrating 0x directly into their smart contracts could just fill these orders through the main exchange and get the full benefits of on-chain DEX aggregation. So this is also a bit of an early idea and something that we're speccing out right now. But I think we will probably be able to iterate on it, maybe start with like 2 DEXs in addition to the other bridges we already have, and gradually move to adding all of the different DEXs to this single contract. Any questions on this? Cool. Next slide.
All right. Hey, everyone. This is Fulvia, product manager for the API. So just a quick other couple of updates on the API. We just released today a prices endpoint. This endpoint allows you to get the price of all tokens available on the API denominated in a token of your choosing. You can find the documentation in the presentation, the link to the documentation in the presentation. Please have a look, and if you have any questions, ping us on Discord on the API General Help channel. We also released today a new guide for using the API to power a margin trading platform. It doesn't include yet, like using the DYDX bridge, but it's a starter guide for building this type of user interface. Again, if you have any questions, please ping us on Discord. Awesome. Brent just sent the links as well on the chat for the call. Thanks, Brent.
Any questions here? Yes. All right. All right. I'm going to give a quick update on the V9 migration. Last call, we basically asked you guys to, or whoever is basically running the mesh nodes currently, to update the version from 8 to 9. That was particularly important because it was basically a network breaking change. So we really needed everybody to migrate, and it's pretty successful so far. All of those that are sharing telemetry, they have migrated. So it's like a good sample of the entire node population has migrated. We still see some logs on the older versions, but that doesn't really undermine the performance of the network. But yeah, if you're listening to the call or watching the video and you haven't upgraded to V9, please do it now. We also have released new versions 9.1 that comes with other bug fixes and improvements. We looked at the data on what it meant to migrate to V9, and one of the biggest benefits we realized is the fact that bandwidth used by the node right now dramatically decreased. I forgot to put the legend here, but on the right side, we have the older version. So it was consuming pretty much 2 orders of magnitude more of what it's consuming now in terms of bandwidth, and that should also help reduce cost of running a node. So that's a pretty significant change. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is the fact that one of our KPIs that we measure for the network, for the mesh network, is how fast are orders propagated throughout the network. So when there's a new order shared in one node, how long does it take for it to be propagated across the rest of the network? And we actually improved it quite a lot. We were looking at the last metrics here, and we basically improved 30%. We added up 30% of orders shared basically at every time interval. So right now, after 10 seconds, we arrive at pretty much 75%, if not more. So it basically takes 10 seconds to get the orders basically shared to 75% of the nodes. It's not still what we want to achieve. We are basically striving for 95%, and we're working towards that objective. However, it was pretty encouraging to see that the things that we added improved that KPI quite a bit. That's all from Mesh. Do you guys have any questions? All right. Yeah. Thanks, Julia, for bringing that up. If you're moving to V9, you might need to do wipe the DB or like do a a hard refresh for it to start well. Thanks for the reminder.
Oh, that was for the error, the 404 error, but I'm glad it was for these two.
For what?
There was somebody was having a 404 error accessing the.
No, actually, it was part of the V9 migration too. So yeah, it applies to that too. It's written in the release notes in case you need to upgrade anyway. All right, it looks like we can save more time for questions at the end, but we have Lauren today, I think, showcasing micro sponsors to the ecosystem. Thanks for joining, Lauren.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to give some background about micro sponsors, and then I have some questions for the team based on what I'll show, because I have other questions about Mesh, and I wanted to show what I've got so far. I'm going to launch to the mainnet on Thursday, and I have the testnet version of it up on microsponsors.io. And if you want to, can I share my screen?
Yeah, take over. I think you can simply, I can simply...
You might have to hand it to me.
Or you can just present now. I think I actually...
Oh, okay, there we go. Got it.
On Thursday, in 2 days.
In 2 days, yeah. So I'm I'm down to the wire here. So yeah, I'm going to update this page with kind of more of like some onboarding stuff. And I also need to add the JavaScript to a CDN. So apologies if it's a little bit slow if you're accessing it yourself. So I'm going to click Browse the Exchange. So what we're doing here is we're building a new kind of marketplace for Ethereum. So it's based on a new crypto primitive. So we've created NFTs that represent time slots. And those tokens are called MSPTs. So a micro sponsors time slot. It's an NFT that has extra data fields attached that define the time slot. And we're going to use 0x to auction these tokenized time slots. So this can work for existing markets like freelancing and consulting. But what we're also creating a new market for is for sponsorships. So micro sponsors becomes a venue for creators and sponsors to meet and transact. So you can monetize your podcast, your website, your game, your newsletter, even your social media account. So it's kind of similar to Brave, but obviously it's not confined to one browser. So as a creator, you register with us and you verify that you own some content, and we record this in a registry. And then once you're registered, you can use the micro sponsors dApp to mint your time slots for your content. And we have a wizard in our UI that walks you through it. So this is the exchange, and on startup, what we're doing is we're starting 0x Mesh kind of in the background. And on the first couple of hits, as 0x Mesh is warming up, we're hitting the 0x API for the counts that you see at the top, like the number of bids that a sponsor might have. And then also, if you click on view bids inside any of the auctions, so each one of these is an auction of a time slot. You click on view bids. This is pulling them straight out of the bids, straight out of the 0x API. And then from then on, it's updating everything through Mesh. So it's kind of like a hybrid approach. We had talked about it I spoke about it with Alex a while back, and figured out that this was kind of going to be, for the time being, the best approach. But I'm also wanting to ask you guys about, what you think the roadmap is with Mesh in the future. But we can get into that in a second. So Mesh started in the background. It connected to its peers, and it's booting off of the Mesh bootstrap list. So I think that's because there's a limitation where right now Mesh can't dial peers over HTTPS. So I'm using that bootstrap list, that 0x bootstrap list, as like an introducer, or I think 0x is using it as an introducer for talking to peers. So this is the basic concept. So each of these is a bid. When you're the owner of the token, next to each of these bids is a button that allows you to fill the order. And then you have, like, over here on the right, you see when the auction ends, and transactions need to happen before the auction ends. Yeah, and the registry is here, and you can register as many pieces of content as you want. And each of the NFTs is mapped to the registry. So every time you transact, every time you mint a token, anytime you do anything with the tokens at all, it's checking that registry to make sure that nobody can imitate somebody else, or everyone's authorized to do the things that they're supposed to be doing through the registry. So that's pretty much the overview of it. I'm curious that when I launch on the mainnet, like in the next day or two, I'll probably do it tonight. Is there anything I need to do with the 0x API? Like, I'm not sure if you guys are using a whitelist, or will it just automatically pick up orders that I publish to it without having to do anything special?
I believe that it accepts everything by default right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, super. Yeah, because I could do that on Kovan, but I wasn't sure if that was going to translate to the mainnet. So my other question is kind of like, what's the roadmap for 0x Mesh as far as I guess I feel like I don't have a lot of insight into where you guys intend for the Mesh, for the consumers of Mesh, to be going in the long run. Like, I'm curious about, for example, like if this were used in kind of like a remote locale, how it's going to work with pinging those bootstrap nodes, for example, and like how much of a priority is it to make like the network edge fast, so that peers are actually like directly consuming orders and events from one another?
I'll answer this question, not probably giving you a technical answer, or not giving you much of a visibility on what the roadmap is, because we are building the roadmap with use cases like yours, Lauren, to be honest. Okay. We are basically improving capabilities and functionalities of the network, starting from obviously the very basic ones, meaning we want to make sure the network is stable, the orders are propagating fine, and the topology is healthy, there's enough redundancy, etc. But to be honest, on how to use it, we need your help and these questions to actually direct the roadmap. Okay. And this very specific question, for example, I mean, I know it's like putting the burden on you, but it would be great if you ask that question on Mesh. That's the best way of basically on the Mesh channel in Discord. That's the best way for us to realize, okay, there's a need for this. We're gonna slot it in our short-term roadmap, obviously. So I know this maybe is not. I know it's not a great answer, but I think the meta message that I want to pass is that we need. These are the signals we wanted to see.
Okay.
now that we have we have a network that is functioning. It's like at its early days still, but we want to evolve it based on what you guys need.
Well, that's fantastic. That's kind of like, I think that's a very honest answer. And also it's obviously something I want to hear. Because what I want to do is I think that, I see this as like a crypto primitive, right? Like time, and the 0x open order book model is perfect for this kind of thing. And I think that there will be other like primitives, whether, MicroSponsors does it or someone else does it, that utilize NFTs in this way. So I definitely want to start a dialogue with other people in the community who want to build on top of these time slots, because basically you could take these time slots and build like a decentralized Airbnb or a decentralized Uber, like using all of these crypto primitives and 0x as the network of liquidity for it. So I think that's a really interesting use case, and I think it's one of the best uses of the 0x protocol. And I'm going to be soliciting, from our community as well. And I think on Friday I'm giving a talk to at a virtual conference, and I'm going to put it out there to the community, like, hey, here's like this new primitive. What can you do with it? What do you want to do with it? And start to kind of like filter that back and get that kind of like meta conversation going. So if 0x Mesh, if that's where you want to have those conversations, I wasn't sure if that channel in Discord was more for like just really quick like technical help, or if you wanted to have that be a venue for the deeper discussions about the roadmap, then that's totally.
Yeah, we're constantly evolving the model. It's true that Discord comes across as mostly as a need for help. Can you solve it? Because anyone from 0x Mesh or other teams solve it. Another thing that it's always been like unclear is the role of a forum.
Right.
So actually, the very first thing that, and internally we started thinking about this, of making it a stronger push to have these type of conversations on the forum. So probably this would be a good topic to bring up in the Mesh section of the forum, rather than
of the 0x forum, or
forum.0x.org.
Wow, I thought that was closed.
Yeah, well, that's what we basically thought we should have done, but then we realized that maybe that's one missing piece of our pipeline of that lands to ZEIPs, for example.
Right. Okay.
And,
I didn't know this was still going on, so that's good to know.
Yeah, we did say that we were going to deprecate it. We never officially shut it down, though, and I guess people have still been using it a little bit in the meantime.
Okay.
Now we're thinking about how to make better use of it, kind of in our internal workflow.
Okay.
But yeah, we are starting to be more active monitoring it at the very least.
Okay. Yeah, because one of the things I've built MicroSponsors to do is to federate. And so it'll be kind of like Uniswap, hopefully, where other people can plug in their own registries, and then everyone can mint these tokens, and then the tokens can flow across the federations as in whatever way each project wants to configure it. So I kind of need, it's interesting because this is such this is like a communications challenge, because now we have kind of like almost like three things stacked on top of each other, right? We have like Ethereum, then we have 0x, and then we have MicroSponsors. And so it's kind of like, how do we kind of like communicate across those gaps? Hopefully maybe the forum we can use for like more high level discussions. But yeah, I'm totally open. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm just not sure how this is going to go, but I think that it's critical.
So I'd say we'll take it offline, Lauren.
Okay.
I think for this, because I really think we should have, and that's what we actually had with Augur. Augur basically pushed us to improve Mesh because we worked closely with them as they were basically following their own roadmap and realized, okay, Mesh has these gaps. Okay, we will improve on that. I think we should do the same with you. So probably have more regular meetings where we basically discuss what your needs are or the blockers and make progress together. But at the same time, it would be fantastic if you. I mean, we appreciate your point of view of, hey, we're basically investigating an emerging primitive that might obviously pertain to micro-sponsors, but maybe it's interesting for somebody else. So in that context, a forum post is fantastic because it can be useful for not only for micro-sponsors, but also to brainstorm or have other applications. So two things, again, I think we should be, and I'll take action on that, we should be closer to what you're building, so we make sure that you're unblocked at all time. And second time, yes, if you can be helpful for the entire community and you feel like doing it, that would be fantastic if you could share your thoughts on the forum.
Yeah, for sure. I think that'll be super helpful. And we'll see what people end up. I feel like there's going to be like a self-organizing element to it where I may not be in control also of like, you know, the way that information starts to flow. So I think I'm going to be ready to kind of like react to things. Just to put that out there. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I want to release a bunch of developer tools and let other people kind of, that makes it easy for other people to integrate. So I'll try to stay in some kind of cadence with you guys as well. I think one of the upcoming things that is going to be kind of like maybe like a first testing ground would be for our affiliate fees. And I spoke to Fulvia a week or two ago about kind of syncing on that. Because basically what I'm saying is like, hey, like we have referral links baked in, but I'm not blocked, but like I'm waiting for the ZeroX protocol to implement the affiliate fees rather than rolling my own. So we'll see how that goes down because I think it could be really interesting where we start to bring in more people that are opinionated about the roadmap.
And just to add to what Theo mentioned, Lauren, feel free, obviously create a forum. If you want to use Discord to actually get some eyeballs on that forum link, feel free to use the ecosystem channel. I think that's probably an appropriate place. And assuming you folks don't have an official Reddit yet, also feel free to use Reddit. It'll be interesting to see what type of feedback you receive on each of those channels.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely going to do all of that. And I'm going to start a Discord as well. And kind of like cross-reference things between the two Discords as well.
Awesome. Well, I think I can speak for the team when I say that we're all very excited. This is an extremely, I think, creative, novel use case of ZeroX, and we're excited for your launch. So congratulations. We're looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing as well. If anyone else is interested in sharing their own creative, novel use cases of ZeroX on a future call, please just reach out to me on Discord, Brent Oshiro, and we'd love to have you do a show and tell.
All right, we have a few minutes left. I think we can use that for questions, open questions you might have.
All right. Well, if there is nothing else, then thank you everyone for joining, and see you next month. Oh, David. I mean, you can always either ping us on Discord or create a ZIP or open up a forum thread. Like I said, the main focus right now is on this new upgradability pattern and less so on the features, but like we have already kind of started compiling feedback on V3. I would say probably the best place right now is to ping us on Discord, and we can kind of add it. Or maybe we should just create like an official wish list on the forum or something.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
So for the benefit of those who are going to be watching on the recording, the question from David was, Amir mentioned V4. Is there a place we can provide a wish list for that?
All right, let's go ahead and open up a forum topic for it then.
Yeah. Perfect. All right.
All right, thanks everyone.